Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. Perhaps you remember the movie The Fugitive with Harrison Ford. If you are older than that, you might even remember the TV show of the same name. If you remember, Ford was accused of killing his wife, although he was innocent. The movie tells the story of his efforts to clear his name and to find out who was really responsible for the death of his wife. One of the things that intrigues me often as I watch that movie is how often Ford's character needs to rely on a friend for help. And because they were friends, often the help is given. The story of David and Abiathar is a bit like that. Yesterday I told you how David became a fugitive from the wrath of King Saul. It's never easy to be a fugitive, and David needed help. By this time David had gathered a few followers, and they showed up at a sanctuary in a place named, of all things, Nob. David went there and asked the priest if there was anything to eat, and the priest offered him something called the showbread. Showbread was a special bread that was used in the worship center. There were 12 loaves prepared each week, one for each tribe of Israel, and they were presented in the worship center before the presence of God. After a week, the loaves were changed, and the priests were told to eat the loaves. The loaves were not to be consumed by those who were not priests. However, that's the bread the priest gave to David and his followers. It would be a bit like if someone came to the church in hunger and I gave them communion wafers to eat. By the way, later on this became an example of how human need can trump rules even in the Bible. Now, back to the story. David also asked the priest if there was a weapon there. In fact, there was a special weapon that was being used as an object to remind everyone of a great thing God had done among them. Behind the altar, they had the sword of Goliath. The priest gave that to David too. Now, the background music shifts to a minor key because there was someone else there who saw all this. A man named Doeg the Edomite. And the first thing Doeg did was to go tell Saul all that had happened. King Saul called the priest to Jerusalem and asked him about it, and then when he heard the story, he was enraged. He told his guard to kill the priest, but they refused. So Doeg the Edomite did it himself. Then Doeg killed all of the priests from Nob, 85 of them in all except one who escaped, a man named Abiathar. He went to David and told David all that had happened. David felt responsible because he had put the priest in that situation, but then he invited Abiathar to stay with him and to serve as a priest for David and his followers. And that's what Abiathar did. And in fact, Abiathar served David loyally for years, and after David became king, Abiathar was appointed as high priest and a counselor of the king. You only make counselors of people you trust. Later on, when King David's son Absalom rebelled, Abiathar comforted and advised David in the way of love for his wayward son. Their friendship was true and long-lasting, perhaps a model of what we'd like our friendships to be. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.